Hello everybody, boa noite a todos. Aqui já é, in England it's 12 o'clock. So, boa noite if you are in England, or bom dia any other place you may be. I taught a class today and a lot of things came up and a lot of things in my mind. I always wish I had more time. That's something that most of us suffer. We always hope we have more time to develop an idea. Really, obviously, as capoeiristas, we want to spend more time, developing something that come up, especially if something that come up in class that you feel you've hit something important and you want to feel that you're being fair as much as possible to your students so they go home thinking of learning something. I know that also that doesn't happen all the time, and I tell them that. I say, look, sometimes you're gonna go home and you haven't really learned that much in a class. You've practiced, some classes are physical, more of that, and you've learned, but you don't go home fully aware of everything that you've learned. Of course you are learning, but it may have some complexity that you haven't fully understood. But I thought something that I know how these vlogs will be developed, and it'll be a lot about practice. It'll be a lot about enhancing your performance. So I was thinking, it's not all about that. So I've been thinking quite a lot about this as well, because I wanted to put another perspective as well. So I wrote some things here that I wanted to share with you. So I said, enhance performance. Yes, we want that. We want to dive in enhancing performance. But we want to also understand the artistic side of development. If you're only thinking about enhancing performance in terms of physical performance, sometimes you can prioritize only physicality. I do give a lot of priority to physicality, as I believe that a lot of the elements that I'm going to tell you can be expressed, can be shown in your game. But they certainly were not attained only by technique. They were not attained only by the physical practice. There are other things inside this pot. Some of these things are the things that I miss the most about my training as a student. I still consider myself a student, but speaking as a teacher now, as someone who mainly teaches capoeira class, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I think led me to perform the way I perform today. And those things were together with my physical practice. So some of the things that I miss the most about my school, and that I actually think, without sounding that I'm contradicting myself, I actually think that these things enhanced my performance, were like things like the sun entering the window of my school. These were all little pockets of bliss that made me want to practice more. One of them that I remember was the sun shining on a Saturday morning. We had a class and the sun used to shine so strong through the windows in our first school, which was near was in a square, was near the prefeitura, where like a local county hall. And I remember thinking about that. I remember watching that and really appreciating that. The sounds of the birds while you're training. Okay, now these are quite Brazilian things that I know you might not experience in England or in other places, but I'll get to a point that suits most people. But the sounds of the birds, the cicadas, I remember that in the evening. But also, and this is where I think it's good for all of us, but also when we sat down to listen I really miss that. If I could transport you now to that, literally transport you to this room where I train, and after class or sometimes in the middle of a class, my teacher would sit us down, and you could hear the cicadas outside, and you knew the world that was going on outside. You knew what was happening outside. And somehow that was also very powerful. So I really miss that. But I'll tell you why these stories can be powerful. Because one time, my teacher sat us down. This was when we were very young. And I remember he took a photo of Mestre Pastinha, like a picture of Mestre Pastinha. And he said, "Do you know who this is?" And we were just like, just everything was just magical. Then who is this old man? And bringing awareness of the wisdom there. And some people knew, Mestre Pastinha. And then he would explain about Mestre Pastinha, and he would talk about Mestre Pastinha, and then another day would be Mestre Bimba. And then I thought, when is the last time, maybe you should think about this, that you had a look, or when is the last time, if you are a teacher, that you sat your class down and you went, who is this? We should not underestimate that, because we want our students to leave the class and feeling, I'm doing capoeira, I'm learning about capoeira. But sometimes, I don't want to generalize, but sometimes to not do that, it's actually to patronize the student. As I say, oh, they don't care about that. They just care about training. They just care about sweating. Of course, people are much better than that. And you're going to find that side will show that you are in search as well of the history. You are in search of these elements, like the birds, the cicada, whatever it is. Could be in London, could be a beautiful day with snow. So many things. I can tell you another story that was really beautiful. I'm not sure if you could do this anywhere, because of health and safety, but this is one of the stories that stayed in my students' mind the most. And I know that because when I celebrated 25 years of capoeira, they gave me this ring. My students, they got together, they gave me this ring, and they made a book, and in the book you'd write things about that you remember, phrase that you remember, something like that. Some of those phrases are really important. If I said something to someone and they remember forever, But one phrase was from a student of mine who said, "I remember one day when there was no lights, we had a power cut, and Mestre got candles in a room, and we practiced with candlelight." And can you just imagine that in this student's mind? Maybe this person changed their perspective about capoeira on that class that day. Because I thought, no, we're here now. Let's do something. Of course, it wasn't the same training. Of course, no, I'm not just putting candles there so we can have a class. It will change the vibe. Will change what we're doing. So sometimes it's not being scared of this kind of thing. Because it's not every day. You're not every day going off somewhere. You are doing your training, but sometimes you understand that you got to show a photo of a mestre. Because your students they appreciate that. Like in this case that I told you, this guy wrote on my book many years later as the most memorable moment in his training. You see, he didn't say, "Oh, I remember when we did this training, this technique or this class, this." And I am now telling you about the sounds of the birds. So I wanted to do this vlog just to bring some attention to the fact that not everything we do and talk about will be about, if you do this will get better, and this movement will get better. But it is the main chunk of what we do. It is for me, at least. Maybe I'm still young. I don't know, but it is for me. The class with the kendo, it's not every day, shouldn't be every day. Or maybe should, I don't know. But I want to train my students, but I do want them to experience that. And precisely because you do train hard, that when these moments come, we can just appreciate that. We can just sit down and appreciate something that is not what we're doing every day. So I also said, the idea of biography is very important for us. So when my teacher showed the photo of Mestre Pastinha, that's also something that the capoeiristas of the past, for them, was very important. For some of them, that's one of the only things they had. Have you realized most capoeiristas, at least from the past, start their albums to giving a little biography. My name is so-and-so and so-and-so. I come from blah, blah. Because it's important for us where you come from, what's your name, your father name, your mother name. It's biography. And then I wrote, biography is important. And one day you want your biography to be read in this light. And even if you're not interested in leaving a legacy, let's say you listen, you go, but I just train capoeira, I love capoeira. I appreciate you in the same way. I really do, and it's because of this. Even if you're not interested in leaving a legacy, just as a practitioner, but by doing this, you will know in your heart that you have all these sides, all this poetic side, as well as the physical. And then you will know that you also go beyond your physical body. You'll be able to, even if it's just for you to know that, you're not going to leave a legacy over, you will, because even if you're just a practitioner, you influence so many people. The person next to you is being influenced by you. So this idea that just the master is leaving a legacy, that's not true. To say nothing about the people that will become teachers and masters, but the students, the legacy, it's our legacy. If we are really interacting and if we are learning, it's not my legacy. I'm giving the guidelines, yes, I might be leading the ship a certain way, and then through that we develop our legacy. But all of your students, so if you are a teacher, this is for you as well, all of your students with you, have a captain. Let's have a captain of the ship, absolutely. But the legacy is left by everybody. Okay, that's the points I wanted to talk about today. I hope you enjoyed this. I do want these vlogs to also be something that I can talk about and give some points there. People change. I think I conquered some grounds so far. I often tell my students, when people say, oh, you've changed, or you changed this, or you've changed that, I don't think people lose faith if you are changing, but you're conquering some grounds. I have no fear of coming back another time, even something I said here and say, guys, I've been thinking about this and maybe I look through these lenses now or something like that. That's fine. As long as we conquer some ground, as long as it's not everything when you change is always contradicting what you're saying, then if it's always like that, then maybe people could lose a little bit of, but you said aggression is not good, now you're saying it's good to be aggressive. So you're conquering some ground where you say, I think we definitely conquer the ground that this kind of thing, it's not helpful. With an open mind, and then other things will always change. They're not always changing for the new. They sometimes change because you see something you didn't see there. So this idea that change always means new, not necessary. But nevertheless, they also have a natural course of changing as you evolve, as you meet other artists, as you bounce off other people. So it's learning what to set and learning where we can change without any fear. Okay? Muito obrigado. Have a good night, guys. Bye-bye.